chapter we have life.
We will wait for just a few minutes before members join in, and then we'll start the event.
Can we start? Yeah.
Shall I start?
Yes, Naruji.
Yeah.
Start.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, wishing you all a very happy Republic Day. Yesterday, the chapter was honored as a token of appreciation was given by Indian Ambassador, His Excellency Sanjay Sudhir, for a chapter role played during the pandemic time over last 2 years, where we joined together to help the Indian community in terms of providing free ration, air tickets, and in whatever way we could. So this is a special recognition that was given by Indian Embassy to all those service community who had assisted during the pandemic time, and ICI chapter was one of them. So it was really a great appreciation for the chapter. And I thank all the members for their generous support during tough times. And I request to continue this good work because still things have not settled in, and there are a lot of people who are still in distress. As an update, the committee met the new ambassador. The managing committee, few of us, we went to see the ambassador, and we briefed him about the chapter activities and what we do, who we are. And we also discussed on the avenues where we can collaborate with the embassy for the betterment of the community itself. And Ambassador was very happy and pleased to note that what we are doing and what is the strength of this chapter. And he said that the embassy and he himself look forward to get associated with the chapter and collaborate on many areas. Now, keeping in view the increase in COVID cases, I request everyone to get fully vaccinated and take care. Back home also, the numbers are going, although this time we see that the sickness level is not so drastic, but still do take care. And we know that Abu Dhabi government has again put in some restrictions on a number of people to attend any event, which is very limited and does not allow us to do any event. So we just wait for authorities to open up, and as soon as we are allowed to do physical events, we will start doing physical events. We are doing the much awaited annual cricket tournament on 12th and 13th Feb. There's a lot of excitement among the members. Sorry, many members have already registered for this cricket tournament. So I welcome all members to participate in this and take enjoyment of, have fun on that day. We continue our learning, and the managing committee always strives to bring in the latest and relevant topics. We are also planning our signature event, analysis of Indian budget, on 3rd of Feb. We are very fortunate to have a consent of Finance Secretary himself to be one of the August speaker. And we thank our member, Anant Srinath, who facilitated Mr. T.V. Somanathan, who is a Finance Secretary in Government of India, to be one of the speaker. He's the man behind who prepares the budget. So it will be great to hear him out and to know that what goes behind the budget, preparation of the budget. I welcome you all to today's PTC event on global market outlook and UAE legal framework. We have international investment expert, Mr. Yogesh Karajani from Century Financials. The other session is on data protection law. And we have an expert, Mr. Madan Mohan from Mayur Batra Group, who will be taking us through what is required in terms of data protection and what the law is and how we should follow it and take care of it. Recently, there has been amendment in the law for bounced checks. And we have an expert, Ms. Sakina Dekenwala from Mayur Batra Group. She will be taking us through this process of what has changed. So I request everyone to please be safe and take care. And now I hand over to Mohammad Shafiq to take care of the proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, Neeraj. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mohammad Shafiq, leader Professional Development Committee. Our first speaker of the evening is Mr. Yogesh Karajani. He doesn't require much of introduction. He's a regular speaker and a very known figure among our members. The expertise and the quality of content that he brings and he shares to the members is remarkable. So, but for the formality's sake, let me introduce Yogesh officially. Yogesh is a qualified investment consultant and coach and holds a degree in business administration from the Institute of Management Science, Lucknow. He brings in a wealth of experience in performance and portfolio management, risk management, financial analysis, wealth management. His in-depth knowledge of investment and trading strategies, combined with his passion for training and interacting, has helped him relate and explain online trading's nuances to all type of investors. He's a certified behavioral finance expert from Duke University and has completed the Harvard-affiliated fintech program. He has multiple other qualifications, but to save some time, and since it's very known to us, let me introduce Mr. Yogesh Karajani. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Shafiqji, and thank you so much, Neeraj, for the introduction. I welcome all of you, and really good to know what ICAI has been doing for the people who were affected by the pandemic, and congratulations for doing such a noble work. And I hope in the future, although I believe that something like this should not ever happen again, but it's really good to know that we are surrounded by community members who are doing this much for the COVID impacted people. And I really congratulate you, really appreciate what you're doing. Welcome to everyone, and to the fellow panelists, Madanji and Ms. Sakina. There are two wonderful presentations coming next after my session. So we'll start this session. Let me just share my presentation right here. Okay, I hope everybody can see this. Yeah.
Yes.
So before we start with the asset outlook, let's try to just understand what has been going on in the financial markets. I should say at least last 2 weeks, we have seen a major downfall especially in the tech area, and overall the stocks have come down also. Dollar has rather gone stronger. Yesterday was the Federal Reserve's meeting. The expectation was that probably Fed is going to repeat the same thing, and this would give some breathe to the market, and markets will start recovering a bit. Given that in the November last year already, Federal Reserve said that they are going to increase the interest rates, and that particular time, we saw markets coming down, and every investor had that in mind that probably this is something which is already priced in. And yesterday, rather than calming the markets, we saw the Fed chairperson, Jerome Powell, he kind of ramped up the whole rate hike pitch. And now the markets, they're expecting not just 3, but at least 5 rate hikes this year. And now, if you see 2-3 days ago, the odds of this happening was 0. But after yesterday's speech, I think none of my traders would have witnessed something what we witnessed yesterday. So given what has happened yesterday, we saw stocks have been coming down. The downward movement has followed. Gold, which the metal which has been going on $1,850 per ounce, it has been rising due to Omicron variant, has been going up due to the Russia-Ukraine tensions and stock market volatility. We were seeing gold prices going high, but then gold prices have also come down today all the way to $1,802 per ounce. And this was just after the Fed statement happened. If we see the crypto assets, most of the cryptocurrencies have bounced back. And this is what has been going on. The world is moving to 2022. And this particular year, if we see the economic growth was not really expected to accelerate, but still slower. But because this was the time of the reopening of the economy full-fledged before Omicron happened, but turns out that Omicron is not, fortunately, not as harmful as COVID was. So we see a very mixed reaction in the markets. Now, just to understand what was the central bank mood few months ago, and I clearly remember I did one similar session 3 days before my wedding in November. And that time, the central bank policies, US was very strict. They were ready to cut down the stimulus which has been injected into the economy. But if we see, for example, India, or if we see China, for example, so if we see China, China was very, very accommodative, even as compared to India. India and US were on the same path. But if we see China, if we see Australia, the conditions were pretty stable. It did not look like an environment where interest would start going up. In fact, even Central Bank of US was in a mood that to keep the interest rates normal, because they thought this inflation was transitory, was very temporary. But after my wedding, things changed. Now, not my wedding has to play a role in it, but this is exactly how financial markets work. What I saw 3 days before and 3 days after, a different Fed completely, and they said that it seems like inflation is not transitory, it's not temporary, it's here to stay. So there is a rate hike which needs to happen, and the asset purchase program, this injection of stimulus, needs to be stopped. So now where the central bank stands, the US central bank stands at a point where they want to completely wrap up the stimulus, the injection of money which started in the pandemic back in 2020. And normally we have seen this whole cycle of stimulus, like last time when it happened, started at 2008, and it till 2014, for 6 years, the stimulus was there. And then in 2014, the tapering started, the cutting stimulus started, and it was done by 2017. It took at least 8.5 years for this entire stimulus to end. And this time, it just took 2.5 years to end the stimulus. So we can see that why markets have not taken this in a very positive way. Now, coming back to understand how commodities have performed. So by the end of the year, we saw gold down almost 4%. S&P was up 23%. Dollar was higher. Bonds were down by 3%. One commodity which really performed well, coffee prices really went up, skyrocketing 84%. So this actually is a reminder that apart from our usual investments, what we do, something like coffee, something like oil prices surged 40. And that is something which is really, really phenomenal, because oil prices were down to negative. I'm sure a lot of you would have remembered. And oil prices have gone up by 40%. Copper went up by 21%, but gold went down around 4 to 5%. This is what was 2021 for a lot of investors. Now, understanding how the outlook of gold has been, since 2021 ended, 2022 started, gold prices did bounce back to a level of 1850. There were a lot of factors which were expecting the gold prices to remain down. And one of them was the rate hike. So it's a very popular opinion of that whenever dollar gets stronger, we see gold prices falling, because there is always an expectation that when inflation goes up, Fed starts increasing the borrowing rates and reduces the supply of money, which makes dollar more stronger and gold comparatively weaker. But what has happened is, with Omicron variant coming in, a lot of uncertainty in the markets. The stock markets have become so much volatile because of Omicron, because of there are Russia and Ukraine tensions also going on. If you see in the news, there are a lot of tensions going on between Russia and Ukraine. Then there was the rate hike news. So everything and a lot of uncertainty kind of pushed gold prices higher. Now, this is really important to understand, friends. If you are looking at gold prices right now, I would say a range of $1,790 per ounce to 1830 could be the range where you can trade in gold, but still follow a bearish tilt, which means I'm still tilted on the downside for the gold this year, given the Omicron variant, given the Russia-Ukraine tensions and how high it went. Today, if you see, gold has come down again to 1806. If we get time, we'll still visit the live platform and see how the prices have fallen. But for now, we still see Fed switching gears and being more aggressive to rate hikes. It's really not favorable for gold at this moment. So if Omicron variant proves to be, fortunately, not very effective, so we might see gold prices going towards a bearish on the downside. But as I said, the range between 1790 to 1830 is very important. During these times, you will see 1830, 1840, it touches and it comes down and again goes to 1790 and it bounces back. So be careful with gold that way. Looking at crude oil, initially oil prices, when we saw the Energy International Administration, the EIA, the forecast of EIA was very simple, that the expectation of oil prices were not very great for 2022. But what has happened is, with the rise, again, as I said before November, what we were seeing, and post-November, what has happened, with the high increase in inflation, and there have been a lot of tensions, there have been supply disruptions. So first quarter of 2022, we are still expecting oil prices to be above $90 to $95, $96. And the reason being that demand, Omicron variant is not as effective as we thought. So the demand for oil it continues to grow up in a reopening economy. And at the same time, there are supply disruptions. So there is a lot of divergence, right? Demand continues to go high, but the supply continues to get disrupted. And supply is getting disrupted due to issues in Libya, issues in Turkey, issues in Nigeria, Iraq. So there are a lot of issues going on with these countries, and that's why we have seen a disruption in the supply. And if you see today, Brent has touched $90 level. So from 80, 84, 85, it has already touched to 90, and a lot of analysts are expecting oil prices to go high. And this is after when EIA forecasted during 2022 beginning that oil prices will decline. We saw a jump in the oil prices, and now most of the analysts are favoring, given the current inflation area and what the supply disruptions which are going on. At least for the first quarter, we might see oil prices likely to remain higher in the international market. So guys, as I said, if you have, Mr. Shafiq said, if you have any questions, please continue to write and we'll try to answer this. Now comes dollar. Dollar has a very strong case. There are a lot of cases why we see dollar inching higher against major asset classes. And while everybody thought in November that the rate hike has already been digested, the movements have already happened, the prices have already moved what it had, dollar continues to gain new highs. So this is a year where we are expecting dollar to still remain on the higher side, be more stronger against euro, not so very against pound, but mostly against dollar, against euro and INR and a couple of currencies. Dollar is likely to remain strong. And given yesterday's Fed speech, I feel that with the rate hikes coming in, the possibility and the probability of that is going to make dollar a little more stronger. So this is the year where we are expecting dollar to remain stronger against yen. The level was around 115 and it has crossed and it has reached to a new high against yen as well in the recent years. So that is something which should be accounted. Euro during when we see euro as a currency at this moment, there is very little scope. So when euro was around 1.4 and 1.14 and 1.15, during that time, it was expected that the inflation target, even Eurozone inflation, if you see, it has hit a new record in December. And it is still raising a lot of questions at what European Central Bank is doing. Inflation rate as compared to previous month and this month, it's still high. But a lot of this inflation in the prices is because of the high oil prices, right? And there has been an energy crunch in Europe since last year. So we have seen energy prices going dramatically high in Europe specifically. And we have seen inflation also growing higher. So that is a big question for the European Central Bank, that what they have to do. Now, if we see as compared to US, Euro has already fallen from 1.15 to all the way to 1.11 levels. Now, there are significant technical support levels, but what we need to understand is with the rate hike coming in and what is going on, not that euro is expected to jump higher. It is expected to remain lower, but within a range between 1.1186 to 1.14. This is the range where we see euro trading around. Not too low than 1.1186. It's a very strong support, and I'll if I get the time, I'll show you the chart also for euro, that how it has been moving on. But highly unlikely that euro is expected to go beyond 1.15 or go or jump. So we are expecting the European GDP also to increase at a slower pace. Not very big wonders over there. And at this point of time, the only way we expect euro to go down is if Central Bank of US says that we are not increasing the interest rates. And that is very highly unlikely to happen. So we are looking euro at a downside, again, with a bearish tilt, I would say, that inclined towards the downside, but still trading in a range between 1.1186 to 1.15. Pound, surprisingly, has performed better than euro against dollar. And the UK Central Bank is also expected to increase the interest rates, but pound is not going to get much affected either by the US interest rate hike or by the UK Central Bank rate hike. So we are expecting Bank of England to increase the interest rates, but that is not going to affect pound that much. So it's still expected to trade between 1.33 to 1.35 levels. Yen has seen a lot of decline, and last year I think somewhere around 10% decline. And with interest rates of US increasing, we still feel, so there is a policy divergence. Japan is still favoring injecting more and more stimulus in the economy while US is wrapping it up. So we have seen new high of dollar against yen, already crossed 115, has reached 216, which is keeping yen still weak. And I think it is still expected to be weaker in 2022. Now, last time a lot of people asked about this as well. Indian rupee is, if we look at from the outlook point of view, there are a lot of factors which are putting Indian rupee in a negative zone as well. Right now it is around 75. So let's look at the factors which might affect on the weaker side. So we are looking at oil prices have gone higher. That is one factor that, again, we're expecting rupee to be down. You see US Central Bank very aggressive on the interest rate hikes. We're looking dollar to be very strong. Now, India has also increased their trade deficit have gone higher. And that is also one reason. Omicron cases is a risk. Of course, I'm sure that all of you are eyeing on the budget is coming. So pre-budget jitters is also one of those levels, and then the elections. Most important thing which we have to understand is, in spite of all these negatives, India has maintained its forex reserves and even increased And so let's say the economy is opening up, and if Omicron variant doesn't be more effective, and the economy opens up more and the trading starts, the trade deficit is not likely to increase too much. So what is the difference between when central bank increased, the US central bank, when they increased rates in 2013 versus now? Now, India stands fourth largest in the reserves. And that is something which works for INR. So what we see is probably from 75, it might go to 78 or 78.5. But after that, over the period of time, it will start coming back to 72, 73 levels. So this is something which we are looking at. There is a lot of foreign capital inflow. That was something which happened for the Indian equities. We saw a lot of foreign investment in the Indian equities, and that still continues to maintain the Indian currency. Now, again, as I say, the coming months will create a lot of chaos across the markets. But that being said, we see dollar versus INR reaching towards 78, 78.5, and then coming back to 70 to 73, not crossing that part. So in spite of all the aggressive stance which we have against INR, a good foreign direct investment, and at the same time, a good foreign exchange reserve, enough to cover 12 months of imports. So that is something which is really good, right? Because the only problem for INR also would be if the trade deficit widens, and if this is something which can be controlled through reserves, then it's a wonderful thing. So we don't see it going beyond 78, but 78, 78.5 is likely to happen in a rate hike environment. And after that, again, coming back to 72 or 73. Now, talking about the US stock market outlook. So before the session started, when what me and Neeraj were briefly discussing about, technology stocks are down. And a lot of investors are heavily into technology. And either we agree or not, what happens is, let's try to understand how this works, right? We order from Amazon, we eat at McDonald's, KFC, we have credit cards, debit cards, which says MasterCard and Visa. We travel in a Boeing plane. I've already pointed this so many times, that if we have accounts on Facebook, we are using WhatsApp, we have accounts in Netflix, we are using a Microsoft system. We are involved into technology so much that it's very difficult for us to get out of that investor mentality that this stock is not going to do good. So we still remain invested in tech. But what is happening right now in a high rate hike environment, investors have always ditched technology stocks and rotated this sector from technology to value. Now, value stocks are these companies which are giving you good dividends, and they are not really volatile. They're not moving too fast. And a lot of these companies like JP Morgan, for example, or we look at good dividend yielding companies like British American Tobacco or companies like that, which are giving you good dividend. They are very less volatile. And if you look at some European and UK based equities, which are giving you good dividends, and the dividend tax is pretty low. So companies like British Petroleum, for example, given oil prices are high, there are a lot of energy companies also which provide you good dividends and can give you a very less volatile environment. So for US markets, I feel overall still be bullish, because I'm going to share something with you, and this was something which was created by the research department. Let me just show you right now. Yeah, right here. So look at S&P's performance. I hope everybody can see this flyer properly. Just 1 second. Yeah, okay, great. Now, so normally, now this is some research what we did trying to understand the performance of S&P 500, the US major index, tracking 500 US companies. From the date of first rate hike, after the whole stimulus thing happens, and whenever the first rate hike happens, the returns in the first 3 months of S&P 500, if you see the first column right now, I want you to see the first column at this moment. This is the one. During the first rate hike, we have always seen in the first 3 months after the first rate hike, the returns are mixed. Sometimes it was positive, sometimes mostly negative. In the next 6 months, you will see just once since 1987, including 2015, we have seen the first after the first rate hike, the next 6 months, we mostly see the returns are positive, barring what happened in 1994. But if you see the 12 months, the return in the 12 months from S&P 500, after the first rate hike, surprisingly, S&P ends positive. And this happened in 87, it happened in 88, it happened in 94, 97, 99, 2004, 2015. If you see throughout this first rate hike cycle, maybe the first 3 months we see mixed returns, first 6 months we see mixed returns, but return in the next 12 months, mostly we have seen percentage returns to be on the positive side, 1.5 being the lowest positive return to 39.6% also. So don't make your mind that if the, because this is a very common notion that if rate hike is happening, stocks are going to go down and then we should get away. You should definitely do a sectoral rotation, slightly move away from the tech stocks for now, and be inclined towards value companies. But at the same time, there are some tech companies which you can look into. There are some good companies which you can look into from a futuristic point of view, from a long-term point of view. So this is one thing. And if you see S&P 500 returns during when the bond yields go up, this is also what has been going on, that the bond yields have mostly gone up from the when the interest rate increases, which is going to happen in March, till the time when it ends. And the entire duration, if you see, whenever the bond yields have gone up, also we have seen most of the time S&P ending up on a positive note, barring three. And this is from 1962 till 2020, right? So the average return of S&P, even during the high bond yields, in 10-year bond yields, we have seen most of the time ending up in positive. And then this was one of the most important things. So sometimes we have seen that whenever S&P goes up by 25%, whenever it has gone up more than 25%, or it has given a return of 25%, the very next year, most of the time, S&P has given positive return. So if you see in 54, 55, 58, 75, 80, 85, throughout these, and these are the specific years when S&P ended 25% or more, when S&P ended up on a positive return of 25% or more. Since 1954 till 2020, we have seen 2019, we have seen that whenever S&P ends up more than 25%, the very next year return is mostly positive, again, barring 1980 and 1989. Now, this is some sort of statistics which you can always have a look and then decide your outlook for these stocks as well. And this is mostly for my friends who are long-term investors. So you look at the market that way, because currently, if you start looking at the news and if you start talking among each other, there will be a lot of chaos. So look at from a very historical point of view and see what numbers have suggested. After the first rate hike, if you see the next 12 months, S&P has given positive returns. Even during the high bond yield environment, most of the time, S&P has given positive returns. If you see every time S&P ended up on a positive note, more than 25%, the next year most likely has shown positive returns. So these are few things which you should understand about the global markets. Next thing is, there are a few stocks. I think we still have some time to look into it. These are the top picks of 2022. A lot of these stocks have come down right now due to the recent fall in the market, but it is a mixture of a lot of companies. So I am mixing it here. The kind of stocks which you should be looking into right now, apart from just the technology stocks, there are companies which are what we call them as reopening companies, right? On the likes of Walt Disney, on the likes of Boeing. These are some reopening stocks you could look at. Then there are some companies which are related to financials, like JP Morgan, for example. In a high rate environment, rate hike environment, JP Morgan, I'll show you the description for JP Morgan, and then you will see that why it is in the portfolio. And then there are some companies which are technology based, but given the current environment of NFTs and cryptos and the whole futuristic stuff, so we have companies like Nvidia in it, we have companies like Coinbase in this. And then in the reopening, we have Boeing, Walt Disney, and Airbnb to look at. In financials, we have JP Morgan. And then in technology, rather than going towards more like Tesla and others, we are still focused on the Salesforce, Amazon, and companies like Nvidia, for example. Now, the reason, so if we look at Amazon, the performance of Amazon is very consistent. The net revenue has continued to increase throughout 2021, at least the first 2 quarters. The last 2 quarters, it was not really great. But the most important part about Amazon is the Amazon Web Services, which is the AWS leg of Amazon, which is responsible for 15% of Amazon's revenue. Now, Amazon Web Services provide cloud computing segment, cloud computing platform, and this platform is used by Netflix, McDonald's, Facebook, BMW. Like, these are the most influential companies at this point. And the cloud services they're storing data, and they're using it to organize their process. And this particular platform is provided by Amazon. So 15% of Amazon's total revenue is coming from Amazon Web Services, and it has started growing. And it is expected that the very contribution to the Amazon Web Services to the company is going to increase, and that is what makes this stock really, really highlighting and more promising. We are expecting again for Amazon to deliver a decent amount of profits even after. So this is something really cool, and you need to just mark this out. A lot of people think that Amazon it's already $1 trillion company. The stock is $3,000 per share. You'll be surprised to see, even in 2022 and the coming years, Amazon still has a lot of room to grow. It's obviously it's a tech stock, so it will be really volatile. But if you see, the entire world is still not done with the e-commerce. E-commerce is the area which is still growing. I said the same thing in 2020. I said the same thing in 2021, and I'm saying the same thing in 2022, because the stock has already continued to move higher, and there is still a lot of room for the e-commerce market to grow ahead. Something like Salesforce, for example, another company which I'm looking at. Salesforce was one tech company which could be affected less during this entire time, rate hike area or Omicron or COVID, because Salesforce is related to a sector which now is one of the most important things in our life, and that is work from home or work from anywhere you are. It has acquired Slack technologies, and their revenues have increased, their net incomes have increased, and Salesforce is still providing a kind of ecosystem for all those products which are related to customer relationship management. So it has a very strong growth story. And whenever we see, all these cyclical downturns, and we see tech companies going down because of the rate hike area, Salesforce is also vulnerable to these kind of downturns. But when you compare it with their competitors and the other companies in the same area, I think Salesforce is still a better choice. Right? Nvidia, one of the great market leaders. So I'm still looking at the tech area right now, but these are the tech companies which kind of are looking from a futuristic point of view. Nvidia is world leader in the chip making industry, and Nvidia is responsible for providing the chips to self-driving cars, a lot of artificial intelligence based processors. You look at data centers, you look at supercomputers, medicine development. Nvidia is responsible to provide all these chips to all these areas. So if you talk about self-driving cars, you talk about cloud gaming, you talk about metaverse, for example. I don't know how many of you have read about metaverse at this moment, but metaverse is increasing. Facebook, that's what makes Facebook a very promising company to look into, because Facebook is completely equipped to carry metaverse on the other stage, right? And metaverse will need a lot of graphic chips, and that is provided by Nvidia. And currently Nvidia has gone down a lot given what has been going on with the tech stocks. So for a lot of these kind of tech companies, it's still a buy on dips area. So just consult your risk expert and see if this is something which you can look into. Now, from the reopening part, Airbnb, still a very best positioned travel company if you look at the post-COVID time, now the stock has started recovering. The bookings in Airbnb has increased as compared to 2019 and 2020. So this is something which you can look at. Again, guys, this is from the reopening point of view and not something from very futuristic, but sometimes post-COVID recovery, if you see in some stocks, that is still better than a lot of returns which you get in the company. Coinbase has talked about creating its own NFT market. NFT is non-fungible tokens. This is the digital piece of art which is sold online. There is a platform for now. eBay has announced to buy and sell NFTs on its platform. The users can do that. Coinbase is also allowing, and to do NFTs, you need cryptos. Coinbase has a crowd of 8 billion users already. So when it starts its NFT platform, it kind of already has the developed user base. Imagine if Netflix comes up with another content. So Netflix already has a user base. All they have to do is integrate that content to the existing users and they will be able to see it. So they already have subscribers. Similarly is Coinbase. So if NFT becomes what we feel it is, then Coinbase will provide a ready market. And one thing which we should not forget, in the entire crypto world, even where the cryptos are not regulated, no crypto is regulated, but one crypto exchange which is publicly listed in the stock market is Coinbase. So that is one source where you can look at if you are interested in cryptos and you don't want exposure in coins, you can always look to invest into cryptos. Adobe continues to provide the creative segment, and in terms of there are a lot of applications which Adobe continues to provide through cloud. When pandemic happened, a lot of clients, when we wanted them to sign the forms, we were using the e-signature, the hello sign, or the document signing, e-document signing apps, and everything was from Adobe. So Adobe has also become, like, if you see about creativity, of course, Adobe provides all these softwares. And right now, even in the marketing automation, Adobe has become a leader. You talk about digital commerce solution, it is developing, it is increasing. The stock has gone up by 44%. And again, as I say, it is expected even by the next 2023, management has estimated $147 billion worth of market opportunity. So this kind of puts Adobe in a very good position. Then ASML, again, is a semiconductors company. We have already talked about Nvidia. So this is one more company which you can look at. Then comes the financials part. Now, this is where JP Morgan, I was talking about. JP Morgan, even during the, so let's first understand that how JP Morgan is making money. The revenue which comes from JP Morgan is from commercial banking, from corporate investment banking, community banking, wealth management. And during the pandemic, this has been one company which has increased their dividends, where most of the financial institution stocks fell by double digit. So with rate hikes coming in, JP Morgan could be something which could be a decent stock to look into. It's country's US largest bank, $3.2 trillion in assets. And their quarterly payments, their dividend payments have also increased in the last 10 years. Right now, the dividend is 2.5%. So the sectoral rotation I was talking about, if you're not really inclined towards tech, you can look into some companies, financial companies, which are giving you decent amount of dividends as well. JP Morgan has really good balance sheet, and that kind of makes it a really good stock to look into. Walt Disney, again, a reopening stock. So Walt Disney makes their revenue from Disney parks, the theme parks, movies. The Spider-Man movie which came in, it almost made $1 billion in the box office. Now the thing with Walt Disney is it remained closed. The theme parks remained closed due to the COVID for the longest time. And after Q4 2021, now if you see, the revenues have started coming in. You talk about resorts, theme parks, cruise ships, vacation clubs, all of them, they are into this particular division. And 2022 will be the time, given if Omicron, I keep saying this again and again because there's a lot of uncertainty about Omicron right now. Fortunately, it is not as effective, as impactful as people thought. But at this moment, if it is what it is, then probably stocks like Disney could see a decent growth, because entire 2021, Disney continued to recover slowly and gradually. And now this could be the year where the operation starts full-fledged. Disney is also into video streaming, so Disney Plus subscriptions are increasing, and that is something which is really important for them to grow. Last but not the least, Boeing. Uh, so Boeing 737 Max, that was the biggest problem for Boeing in 2020. We saw in 2021 as well. Now again, it feels like the Boeing is coming away from the crisis. China has reapproved the 787 Max for commercial services. This is really, really important because this is a very, very significant step towards the Boeing returns, because Civil Aviation Administration of China, they have allowed the buying of Max again, and it is expected, as compared to Airbus, Boeing still continues to perform better. So when we see whether it is supply of jets in the pandemic, we saw one thing, that these stocks went down. But now again, when the country is reopening, we again might see, as compared to Airbus, Boeing still dominates this position. And the new version of Boeing, which is coming in, and the rise in the Max again, it might lead to the higher sales for the company. So from the reopening point, these are the few companies which you can currently look at, right? So from equities point of view, this is something what you can look at. So just 1 second. Yeah. And from the emerging market, so again, if we look at bond markets, and if we look at emerging market stocks, so Indian equity market still looks promising. Only a few things. So with the budget coming in again, I'm sure there will be a lot of much more qualified people to speak on budget. So with the budget and elections coming in, volatility is expected. Look at other emerging markets as well. But yes, as Indians, we are always, one leg is always in India to look at the Indian equities. See what budget has for the life sciences companies, because there is a possibility for the medical companies, for the healthcare sector, there is something, so that can involve. But as of now, there will be a lot of volatility with Fed rate hike. If the investors, and again, this is just a observation, with Fed increasing interest rates, if uh, India doesn't increase it, and if there is an outflow of the foreign portfolios, then there is a possibility that stock markets might come down. But if it doesn't happen, then we still see Indian stocks continue to grow and give. Again, everything depends on the budget which will come, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who would want to closely watch at. From the bonds area, try to wait. Do not invest into bonds right now. Uh, right now, the interest rates will go up further, and that is going to bring bond prices down. Probably that will be the time when you can look into the bond prices, and probably then you can enter into the bond area. But as of now, uh, before the interest rates go up, I think just try to remain calm until the rates go up and prices come down, and then probably enter. I was having a word with one of my fellow analysts, and he said that, see, there are bonds, there are Maldivian bonds and Bangladeshi bonds which are providing 9% yield, but then the risk remains. So higher the yield, higher the risk there is. So if you're looking for higher returns, then there are countries which are providing you that. But from a safety point of view, again, everybody would look forward to do in US treasuries. So that way, still wait for the interest rates to go up so the prices can come down. So you can look at cryptocurrencies. Please understand, stick to the cryptos which are the major ones. Do not get carried away by the Doge coins and the Squid Game coins and the parody coins. Do not get attracted to the market rumors. Bitcoin solves a very important purpose: cross-border payment solution. Currently, all of you know that if you have to do a payment transfer from one country to the another for a business, that takes not just the time, but is not a really cost-efficient way. It takes a lot of percentage, a lot of charges, plus it takes time. With Bitcoin, the expectation is that it is expected to solve this cross-border payment issue, making it more faster, making it very cost efficient. So Bitcoin has again a purpose. It's not regulated yet, but that is why investors continue to look towards Bitcoin. Ethereum is like an internet to the crypto world. NFTs, any other things coming on the crypto area, Ethereum is providing that kind of a platform. So Ethereum is solving also a lot of problems for uh, the people. Cardano is again responsible for lifting up the education system in Ethiopia. So there are these three, four cryptocurrencies which are good, maybe not very environment friendly, but they are the ones which are the major ones. If you are an investor and if you want to invest into it, just look at these two, three cryptos and please do not get distracted. Okay, because that's a very common question asked, which crypto should I look at? This is a new crypto, it went up by 30,000%, 100,000%. Just focus. Ethereum is one of the cryptos which you can definitely look at least track the prices, because Ethereum is down more than 50% now from its price. And Ethereum has a certain amount of future because with a new version of internet coming in and with NFTs coming in, and Ethereum will provide the platform to all of it. So that is one crypto which you can look at least track the prices. Themes like there was in 2021 and 2020, themes continue to be important from a futuristic point of view, whether we say digital health, companies which are reducing internet traffic, EV space. One quick thing about electric vehicles, if you think Tesla is too expensive or too volatile, look at this company called Lucid Motors. The size at which it is right now, when Tesla was this size, it was not delivering on its promises, and Lucid Motors is. So with the vision Lucid Motors has in 2022, 2023, they're expected to be delivering a lot more vehicles, plus the batteries which Lucid Motors is using are slightly more efficient than Tesla. So, and it's a $40 stock. So I'm not saying straight away buy, but just look into the company more instead of inclining towards Tesla. Look at the other companies as well. Top investment themes for 2022. So you need to look at these the reopening winners, like I talked about Airbnb, Walt Disney, Boeing, mid-cap companies. Again, go towards more value stocks. As I said, there is a sector rotation. Then there is energy-based companies. Looking, oil prices continue to grow. I think those energy companies which are less volatile, giving you good dividends, like ExxonMobil, British Petroleum, ENISPA. Look at those kind of companies. And then there are financials like JP Morgan, which are the top investment themes you should look at. Keep a check on inflation and Federal Reserve policies. This is something which is really going to be the most important talk in entire 2022. As a retail investor, there is going to be a lot of volatility. So there are going to be a lot of fluctuations. If you're a trader, please put stop losses. If you're a long-term investor, buy and pick companies when it comes down to a certain level. So at this point of time, not necessarily just enter into all the tech. Please rotate towards those companies which are less volatile and giving you a fixed dividend. Rotate towards those companies. There will still be big tech dominance, but then when I say big tech, I'm still inclined towards Amazon as a company, Nvidia because of the cheaper prices, and then post-pandemic growth is for the reopening winners. Equity valuations and corporate earnings. So the earnings are still expected to be better, since this is the year where world is fully open and it's expected to perform. So the earnings are expected, the corporate earnings, at least for the first quarter, are expected to be higher. So be very close and keep watching the earnings of the companies, because good earnings still pushes the stock higher. Right. So if there are any questions, I can see the questions here. Okay, I think there are 5 questions. A lot of investment themes now towards private equity investment. Do you think investors are risk takers rather than risk averse? I think, sorry, 1 second, let me just remove this. Okay, so very quickly, outlook for Indian share market and sectors to watch for. So as I said, giving an outlook for Indian markets right now, I'm not the best person to do that, but I can definitely check a proper research report, because with the budget coming in, elections coming in, for me to say anything about Indian markets right now is risky. Everything is on the budget. One thing which I was reading through was that there could be something for the healthcare sector from the life sciences, and if it comes across, then that could probably be a good area to look into. A lot of investment theme is now towards private equity investment. Do you think investors are risk takers rather than risk averse? See, there are a lot of investors who are risk takers, and that shows. When I see here, there are so many people investing into cryptos. It definitely shows that people are risk takers. But what you need to understand is private equity works on a very different model. So one thing for Indian markets, which can definitely work, just to add on to the first question, there are a lot of IPOs coming in India. Sadly, Paytm was not that kind of the IPO which anyone expected when it came out at 2,100 and went all the way to 900. But there are still a lot of IPOs which are coming. So that is also going to impact the stock market movement mostly in a positive way. And when it comes to private equities, yeah, especially the use of SPACs in 2020, we saw a lot of use of SPAC, and we are still seeing private equity investors, they continue to increase. So this is a normal investor mentality, but then you have to look at yours, because a lot of SPAC investments which happened in 2020 and 2021, not all of them worked out really well. And at this point of time, there is so much crowd in private equity area and SPACs area that the actual profit for private equity based companies is less, because there are so many players in the market due to the increased investments in the private equity. So if you're looking from the return point of view in those private equity companies, there might be not a very great increase because of the lot of competition. So you have to cherry pick those companies which are performing well from the entire sector. Do you expect a rate hike by RBI? So this is, I think this should happen. This should happen after the rate hike happens, because if it doesn't happen, then there could be a lot of foreign portfolios, which the money which is invested, there might be a lot of outflow from the FPI area. So I think RBI will increase interest rates. What is your call, value or quality against growth and momentum? So as I said, rather than growth and momentum, be inclined towards value stocks. Give you a decent amount of dividends, especially in a rate hike environment. We have seen in the past that investors, they ditch tech stocks and they move to value. So at this point of time, definitely value. Most of the reopening stocks you are suggesting has incurred heavy losses in the pandemic. Don't you think it will take time to distribute their earning? So one thing is, it is right that a lot of these reopening stocks had heavy losses in pandemic. Now I'm talking about why I call them reopening stocks is your very return is their recovery. So if Boeing fell down to $90 and when it went back to 150, somebody who invested in 90 still made a profit on that. So reopening stocks, why we keep naming it as reopening stocks and we are not looking at their thing, this is the time when they will start recovering. You talk about Boeing, you talk about Walt Disney getting approvals now to move forward. So their recovery will be your return. So just look at that perspective. When do you expect the interest rates to go up? So as compared to Fed, what we have seen with the Federal Reserve in the March rate hike will start. And after yesterday, what we were expecting that there will be 3 rate hikes, now it is expected to become 5, but only time will tell how much it's going to be, but at least 3, I'm sure. So normally Fed increases, they are expected to increase it in March. And yesterday there was a lot of volatility in the markets and even in the March. So the biggest question is that whether this rate hike has already been priced in or not, whether market has already digested that or not. What we thought in November it was already digested has still not been digested yet, because the market continues to get affected after every time the Fed comes in. So the first rate hike will be in March, and then the next 2-3 months we'll continue to see. It is expected to happen at least 3 times this year. So mostly could be March and then June and then September, or March and September and December, given how it will happen. Which is the best investment platform for US stocks in UAE? Lower charges. See, at this point of time, don't look at the charges. Looking at the cost or the charges is not the right thing, because you might pay less charge, but if you don't get the good consultation, then because the kind of world we are living in, we are doing sessions on Zoom, working from home with one single tweet, the market moves. So charges, you pay a lot of charges, in fact, to somebody who is giving you the right kind of consultation and making sure that your risk is managed. I think that is more important. It's time to move to cyclical, considering growth forecast to GDP. So rather than cyclical, look at non-cyclical stocks. Non-cyclical stocks are the ones which are kind of recession proof, and they give you good amount of dividend just to attract their purchase. So look at those companies, look at financials and look at energies. These two sectors are really good from a global point of view. And from tech, as I said, I showed you a portfolio, which you can, I'll send it over the email, this particular portfolio as well. And you can see these portfolios. Any other question? Okay, one second, there are more. Valuations for Zomato. So Zomato was one thing. I had a small chat on 100.fm, and when we were talking about Zomato, that was the time when Zomato came up with the IPO. And I remember that time as well. And I was talking to a few fellow analysts. When you look at companies like Zomato, don't look at the valuations, because if you see numbers, then Zomato is not a good purchase. You will see it negative. But there are some companies which always have existed in our lives, and it was just too late for Zomato to come as an IPO. But if you don't look this, so there are some companies which you should not look valuations for, just see the utility. Zomato, you're still using Zomato, whether the stock is up or down, right? So from a futuristic point of view, Zomato is a good stock to invest in. It will have its volatility, but don't look at its valuation. If you see valuation wise, then it's not a good stock. But then there are some companies which you don't have to look the valuations to. I know as an analyst, we should not be saying that, but this is what it is. From the numbers point of view, Zomato is not very promising company, but had I invested in it, probably yes. So some companies are in our lives and they have existed and they will continue to. So Zomato is one of those. Lucid is at 30 levels today. Is it good to enter at these levels? So I think there is, 1 second. Yeah. So I think somebody, Dheeraj just said it right. Zomato is good for food and not for making money. So if you look at the valuations, yes, that's what I'm saying. From the valuation point of view, it's not the company you would like to invest into. But this is a discussion I had with a very senior guy, and he said that I have seen back in the past that there are these companies whose valuations are not good, but still they continue to rise. Biggest example in front of you was Tesla. Valuations, Tesla had no valuations. It was just a vision and still continued to go higher. View on Russia-Ukraine crisis. So my only view is just look at the gold prices for that. Because right now, there is still a possibility of a war given what Russia says or US says. At the end of the day, it's a lot of political comments. Lucid is at 30 levels today. Is it good to enter at these levels? So again, look Lucid Motors as a stock in the next 2-3 years. And electric vehicle space is one which is growing. By 2025 or 2030, this area is expected to grow even further. And given we are in a Democrat area where President is Joe Biden and the Senate and Parliament is blue, there will be a lot of stimulus injected towards renewables and electric vehicles. So definitely this area is going to grow. And instead of more inclining towards Tesla, look at the company whose battery is more efficient. And right now, the company which is growing. I think that is a better stock to look into rather than Tesla. Talk more about, okay. So for gold, this is one special request about gold. So see, just look gold right now from a very trading perspective and look it from a very bearish point of view. Don't have your hopes too high for gold prices right now. So Russia-Ukraine crisis will be temporary. Omicron variant will be temporary. But rate hikes and the inflation as of now is kind of permanent. So you look at gold from that perspective. The range of 1790 to 1830 still continues, and it is right now a very trading perspective. If I were to look at a longer term, I would still be on the bearish side, on the downside. But from a range bound, it is 1790 to 1830. And in a rate hike environment, it's least likely that gold prices will bounce to 1900 or 2000 levels, unless there is a Omicron or a war kind of a situation, because then it acts as a safe haven and people look up to it. Can you tell us what additional services you provide? We're providing consultation, trainings, a lot of penny Indian stocks which has given high return in the past. Do you think this will continue? So penny stocks have, when we look at penny stocks, the problem with penny stocks is the make it or the break it situation. If you're looking at the penny stocks, look at the companies. So I'll give you one example. Those companies probably which are working on providing a technology that will increase the productivity of an agricultural land. If that is a penny stock, then you should definitely invest into. Given the volatility expected over course of next few months, should we plan to book regular profits during 2022? See, it's a very important question. The problem is my answer to this will always be yes, but nobody's going to do it. It's very difficult to make money in stock markets. Actually, it's not that difficult, but what is difficult is to avoid this alluring temptation to throw your money away and get rich quick speculative binges. If you are look your profits from the percentage point of view. Today, if you keep your money in the bank in India and include the currency depreciation, what will be the return? Are you making your percentage return more than that particular return in this? Then you should definitely close it, right? So look at your returns from percentage and not from the numbers. Looking EV space and Indian companies in that space. Yeah, sorry, I'm just, I think just one question was left. Rest is done, sorry.
Thank you so much. You're like making my life so easy. Not asking you questions. You made my job so easy. Thank you. As usual, your session was insightful, backed with a lot of research and really quality content. So as a token of appreciation, we would like to share you with a certificate signed by our chairman and vice chairman. And
thank you guys. Thank you so much.
By email. And it's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you once again for your time. Moving on to the next session, Sienna Thomas, please introduce.
Just 1 second.
Yes.
Yogesh, I believe that your marketing team will contact our members who wants to take services from Century Financial, and probably maybe a few members who would like to engage with Century Financials for their investments and all. So please ask your team to get in touch with them. Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Neeraj. Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening to all the members and the speakers. So the next session is going to be an interesting one on data protection laws in the UAE. And we have with us Mr. Madan Mohan, who is a director at MBG Corporate Services. Mr. Madan has around 2 decades of experience in servicing public sector and private sector clients, specifically in the areas of information security, privacy, cybersecurity, risk management, digitalization in India and the Middle East. So let's hear more from the expert. Welcome to the session, Mr. Madan.
Thank you, Yogesh. Thank you, Anu, for introduction. And Yogesh, you have a very wonderful session, right? It's really good to see you and the market insights you have given. I will surely contact you before investing anything in the market.
Thank you, Madan. Looking forward for your session as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me share my screen first. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. So hello, everyone. I trust you and your family are doing good and are healthy. Now, today's session is basically, if you know the new data protection law. So we will let you know what are the applicability for the new data protection law, what are the key features, and how to get the compliance. Then after that, we will go for the question and answer. Now, getting into the slide, basically, as most of you guys are already aware that the UAE cabinet has enacted federal data protection law, which is applicable from 2nd January 2020. This will provide a framework to ensure the confidentiality and security of personal information, outlining the rights and duties of all concerned parties. We also aware that UAE, in the UAE, we have multiple data protection regulations like DSCC, DIFC, ADGM, but these are specific to certain locations like free zones or some sectors like healthcare. However, now we got a federal level data protection, which is applicable to all. Yes, there are some exceptions, which I will mention later in my presentation. But this new law will regulate the collection, handling, disclosure, and use of personal data. However, new data protection law also enhance the governance and transparency obligation that mirror many of the principles like GDPR. Now, going to the slides, this is basically the definitions. These are few terms which I'm going to use in my presentation. Hence, it is very important for you guys to understand these terms. The first is personal data, right? So data which relates to a living individual who can be identified from that data. For example, if I'm talking about, place of birth, name, address, or maybe login IP, your height, those are the personal data. If I'm talking about another data, which is the sensitive data, right? If the data relating to health records, right? Or sexual, orientation, and maybe biometric data, fingerprints, voice, iris, right? Or maybe your RNA or DNA analysis data, those falls under sensitive data, which require a lot of controls and these are the sensitive data which every company should protect. Data subject, an individual who is subject of the personal data. For example, if somebody is processing my personal data, that means I'm the data subject. I'm individual as a data subject. Data controller, a person or entity who determines how personal data is to be processed and what kind of controls would be required to protect that data. If I'm taking one example, if a hospital is taking my data for a COVID test, then hospital will be the data controller of my data. The another one is data processor, right? So if any person or entity who process the data on behalf of data controller, right? I'm taking the same example of my previous one. If any hospital is sending my blood sample for COVID analysis to third-party lab, then third-party lab and hospital both would be the data processor of my person. The last one is processing. So if I'm talking about the processing, if any entity or collecting my data, storing, using, deleting, any of these things, right? Those things or those terms called as a processing. Right? Now, I hope this is very basic understanding of personal data, right? And I understood that you know these kind of basic things. Now, let me jump to the actual law. So this is the applicability, right? If I'm talking about the data subject resides or has a place of business in the UAE comes under this law. The another one is basically any entity located in UAE who carries out the activities of personal data of the data subject, whether it is inside or outside the UAE. So I'm taking one example here. If travel company established in UAE who is collecting the personal information of UAE residents and sending that information within or outside UAE, that comes under this data protection. The third one, as per the law, if entity, those are located outside UAE and performs activities pertaining to personal data of UAE residents. That means if any e-commerce company, let's say, any e-commerce company whose setup is in India and processing UAE residents' personal data for selling their products in UAE, then this company will also come under this. So it's very clear as per the law, if any company located inside or outside UAE and processing UAE residents' data, then that company comes under the scope of data protection. Having said, on my previous slide, we already have set of regulations with respect to some sectors and free zones. Hence, as of now, those areas are exempted from the law. These are government entities, healthcare, banking sector, maybe free zones like DFC, ADGM, or DSCC. So these are the exclusion from the data protection law. Now, this slides talk about key features, which is highlighted in the law. So the data law will be overseen by UAE Data Office, which will be, first federal data protection regulator. UAE Data Office will be responsible for preparing their policies, guidance, handling complaints, and data breach notification. They will also, put some penalties in the regulations. As of now, data protection law does not set any kind of administrative penalties, but we expect the details to be included in the regulation very soon. I will take you through the critical points on this slide. The first one is consent. Taking a consent if company should take a consent if they are processing any personal data, then company should take consent from data subject before processing their data. They should, whether it is implicit consent or explicit consent, but they should take a consent before any processing their data. Process fair and transparent manner means if data subject, basically the data subject should know why companies are asking and processing their personal data, right? Where they are sending, how they are protecting their personal data. So they should know how the companies are protecting, how they are processing, where they are sending these kind of data. It's a data subject rights, basically. Companies should ensure data protection with respect to confidentiality and integrity. This is very important point, basically, because they are talking about the protection, right? So protection with respect to the confidentiality, how you are protecting the data subject data, what kind of controls you have in place, right? And as per the law, the data subject has all rights on the data shared with the company, wherein at given point of time, the data subject may ask to update their personal data, or even in that manner, they can delete it. Company must ensure the privacy and data breach policies and procedure that should be in line with the new data protection law of the EU. Appointment of DPO is, required if organization is processing personal data with the help of latest technology, maybe through artificial intelligence or machine learning, or maybe through data science, which could increase the privacy risk. And that's why they mentioned that DPO is very much required if you are using any kind of artificial intelligence or machine learning while processing the data. Data privacy impact assessment, this law has one mandatory and critical requirement of data privacy impact assessment if organization is processing high risk activities. Organization should consider many factors while conducting this DPIA. For example, the categorization of personal data, volume of data, how much data you are considering, whether third parties accessing those data or not, how they are accessing their data, nature of access, whether it is directly through the database or it is through API, that should also consider while conducting the privacy impact assessment. Number of system is also very much important. If you have one system or you have 100 systems, the risk would increase in that terms. Organization should also conduct the risk assessment to identify the critical risk towards the personal data. And once the risk is identified, organization should prepare a risk mitigation strategy to reduce risk and implement the proper control. Right? So this is very important factor in any data privacy framework where controller should conduct the data privacy impact assessment. Now, the important thing is how to get ready for compliance. This is an important slide which states about how to get ready the compliance. I have divided this in 12 major activities which ensures the compliance of new data protection. The first one is data audit. Under the new data protection law, there is an implicit requirement that controller and processor should know what data they hold, how the data is held, right? So every controller and processor should know these kind of things, and they should conduct the data audit. The processor must also document their processing activities, which should be in line with the requirement to demonstrate the controls. To comply with this requirement, organizations should consider many techniques to conduct the audit. So basically, they should consider personal data, how they are taking care of that, how they the source of that data, where they are storing, right? How long they have to store, and also the reason they should capture the reason why they are storing, why they are processing. And they should also consider the access mechanism, who are having those kind of access. When they should conduct the regular access control mechanism or conduct the audit, those kind of things. The second one is the privacy governance. Controller and processor both must review their existing privacy policies and notices and update them in line with the new data law. And make sure that all notices must be concise, transparent, and easily accessible. Right. So you should provide the training, you should have the policies, procedure, all the templates, you should conduct the DPIA. The third one is data rights. Data rights must be provided to data subject, and organizations should consider their procedures, right? How their procedures should change to comply with these data subject rights. So they should review their internal procedures, their business practices, and then change the procedure as per the new. Fourth one is data consent. As I mentioned earlier, data consent is very much important, and controller and processor who rely on consent to process data, they should review their existing consents to determine whether they are adequately defined under the new data protection or not. So they should check what kind of consent, how they are taking this consent, whether it is implicit or explicit. They should give the opt-out option to the data subject while considering the consent. The fifth is legal basis for the processing the personal data. Controller needs to determine the legal basis on which personal data is processed and update the relevant privacy notices if it is necessary. Accountability, basically, organizations should set the accountability to protect personal data. Organizations should, they may take many steps to demonstrate the compliance. Like if I'm talking about, organizations should keep records of all data processing activities which they are carried out. They must implement technical and organizational measures for achieving the compliance. As I mentioned earlier, DPIA, they should conduct the data privacy impact assessment where controllers are engaged in high-risk processing activities. They should also appoint a DPO if processors and controllers are engaged in high-risk processing activities. And the important one is implement the measures that meet the principle of data protection by design and by default, including they should, do the pseudonymization. They should minimize the data, right? Or the transparency and improving the security feature ongoing basis. So these kind of things organizations should implement while setting the accountability. Eighth is data breach. Organizations should prepare a data breach policies, procedures, and they should notify to the regulatory body and data subject if any breach happens. Right. So for that, organizations should have all the procedure, all the templates in line. They should prepare a roles and responsibility mechanism who will basically tell to data subject, all the other regulation body. The ninth one is legal contract. Right, legal contract, basically controllers should review and update their contracts, their existing contract with their processors or even their employees as well. Having said in my previous slide, data protection is one of the major requirements for this new data protection law. Hence, companies should adopt information security standards like international standard ISO 27001 or NISA to improve information security posture of an organization. They should adopt these kind of international standard and improve information security of the organization. Cybersecurity is also a critical need to protect the personal data. Organizations should identify the critical storage, data storage assets, right? And conduct cybersecurity assessment, like they should conduct the vulnerability assessment, penetration testing. They should understand the network security. They should regularly conduct network security assessment. They should know the security architecture, right? Whether the security architecture is proper or not, and continuously assess that security architecture design. And there are many things they should conduct in information security and data privacy. Last but not least, privacy training, which is very important, and organizations should, they should provide the privacy training to all their employees and other stakeholders on a regular basis. So these are the 12 major activities. With the help of that, you can implement new data privacy law in UAE. Now, another slide is how can we help? This is again an important slide which talk about our services towards privacy implementation. MBG has their own privacy framework based on international framework and best practices in industry, where we are considering holistic view of people, process, and technology to implement data protection and privacy governance structure. We can do readiness assessment against data protection law. We can implement information security, cybersecurity framework, or maybe privacy framework. In that governance structure, we will prepare a governance structure, policies, procedures, trainings, templates, and so on. We can also implement different technologies which supports data privacy and information security that are data leak protection, DLP, data classification technology, or even the data discovery tool. Right. So these are the things we can help to our clients how to implement the data protection law. This is basically the implementation approach which we follow. This is very high level implementation approach in 4 different phases. The first phase is basically the project initiation and readiness assessment, where we first understand the organization's key objective, their business, their stakeholder, and prepare the detailed project plan as per the scope. In readiness assessment, or we can say the gap assessment, we will review their privacy policies, if they have existing policies, their procedures, and their existing practices to protect that data subject data basically. We do their technology gap assessment as well, and we conduct that complete data lifecycle assessment, how they are collecting, how they are processing, if they are transferring to third party, what kind of controls they have implemented, and when they are deleting, what kind of technology they are using to delete the data subjects data. We also review if they have already conducted DPIA. So what kind of techniques they are using, whether the proper implementation they have done or not. We can review the consent management as well. So in second phase, we actually design the framework where we prepare privacy policies, procedures, we provide the templates, governance structures, roles and responsibility, who will do what. And we also provide the training to the end users, right? Whether it is employee, whether it is external stakeholders. We also prepare, in this stage, we also prepare the contracts in between the company and employee contracts, or maybe intercompany data transfer agreement. If they have multiple companies and they are transferring data from one company to another company, in that case, they would require the intercompany data transfer agreement. So we prepare that kind of agreements as well. Third phase is actual implementation phase, where we prepare the data sheets, data inventory, whether it is personal data or the other critical data. We conduct the end-to-end privacy risk assessment and impact assessment. We develop and roll out data subject rights and consent. And the fourth and last phase is basically the continuous improvement program, where we provide virtual DPO and the team. And actually, a privacy program requires continuous assessment to improve privacy posture of an organization, where we conduct regular review of their business processes, gaps in the implementation, if there are some new risks identified, what kind of controls they would require. So we will conduct all these kind of things in phase 4. These are the typical deliverables that we provide in our privacy implementation, whether it is ROPA or privacy data register, policies, procedures, right? So these kind of things we prepare in the deliverables and provide these things to our client. So this is basically from my end, and I really appreciate your presence for this webinar, and I hope you found this to be informative. Anu, it's over to you, and now the forum is open for the question.
Thank you, Madan. We'll just take 2 to 3 questions. So one question is there in the Q&A section. It says, what are the qualifications required for DPO as per the law? The scope of CAs to act as DPO in an organization.
Okay. So as per now the regulation, we are still waiting for the regulation. So in the law, they have not mentioned any kind of qualification as of now, but very soon we will get the regulation, and then they will mention the qualification of DPO. But as per the best practices and the GDPR and the other law, the person who should have a knowledge on information security and data protection mechanism, also they should have a little bit knowledge on the legal and the business perspective. If I'm talking about the experience, the person should have the minimum experience of 7+ years. Correct? So this is as per my experience on the other data protection law. But as of now, we are waiting for the regulation, and then it would be very clear what kind of qualification would require for that.
Okay, so is appointing a data protection officer must for all organizations? That is still not, is it confirmed?
Yeah, it is confirmed that, so DPO is not required if any company is not, in the high processing activities, right? So if they are in high processing activities and they are using any kind of machine learning and artificial intelligence, then they have to appoint the DPO.
Okay, so just in the interest of time, we'll take one last question. Is it possible to transfer personal data internationally?
Yes, it is possible. Only the thing is, if in that country where you are transferring, if they already have a privacy regulation, then only you can transfer, otherwise not.
Okay. So thank you very much, Madan, for being with us and giving such an insightful talk. As a memento, as token of appreciation, we would like to present a certificate of appreciation to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you once more. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So let's quickly move on to the last and final session of the day. We have with us Ms. Sakina Dikanwala, who is the Associate Partner, Legal Services at MBG Corporate Services. She'll be taking us through the amendments to UAE federal law on bounce checks. Ms. Sakina advises multinational clients on a wide range of aspects relating to commercial law, business restructuring, commercial agency and distributorship, employment matters, regulatory and compliance matters. She has more than 9 years of professional experience in advising clients in the field of corporate and commercial laws, employment and labor laws. Welcome to the session, Ms. Sakina.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anu, and a very good evening, everyone. Also, I would like to thank all ICI committee members for organizing this session, and I hope this will be informative for all the participants. So without taking much time, let me just dive into today's topic, which is regarding the check bouncing regulation in the UAE. So I believe everyone knows about this new regulation, which has been implemented from 2nd January 2022. So this has abrogated the commercial transaction law and the penal code, which deals with the check bouncing matters. So now, prior to issuance of this decree, there was a provision with respect to the criminal offense if there is any check bouncing matters. This was being treated as a criminal offense. But now this has become a civil offense wherein the remedy for applying to the civil court has been given. Directly, we can go for the execution of the check. Now, what are the provisions, how it can be applied to, I have covered in my upcoming slides. So to start with, one of the key amendment that has been happened is about the partial payment. So where there is a fund for the payment which is available less in the account, then the partial payment of the check is possible until unless the bearer rejects the partial payment. Now, this partial payment, upon each partial payment, the drawee shall make initials on the back of the check as well as issue a certificate to the bearer of the check, and with that documents the bearer of the check can go for an execution order. So earlier if there was any check bouncing case, that was upfront being considered as a criminal offense, and the bearer of the check was applying to the police and then they were taking the actions. So now we have narrated it with an example that, for example, if the check value is of 100,000 and only 80,000 is available in the pay's account, then that 80,000 amount will be paid to the payer, and unless the payer rejects the amount, and then further for the partial amount, which is 20,000, an executive order can be filed. Now, as I have highlighted that what is the legal recourse available under the new law. So legal recourse which is available in case of the bounce check is being mentioned in Article 635, wherein directly an executive order can be applied to the bank. There are documents which will be provided by the bank. The check will be provided by the bank, wherein the check will write that the banker will write that how much is the amount which is being unpaid or partially paid, and then with a certification which can be applied for the executive order. Now, this has lessened the burden of the courts, wherein earlier there was a first approach was being made to the police. And then for, again, to get the money, there was a complete case which was being filed to the civil court. And then finally, there was an execution happening if the payee gets a successful order in its favor. So now directly the execution can be filed without going into these detailed procedure which was there in the earlier case. So basically this amendment has been happened considering the international regulations which are being prevailing in the other countries and globally with respect to the bounce check. So now, what were the previous provisions with respect to the bounce check? So mainly there was a criminal liability with respect to the imprisonment, and there was a penal implications as well in the earlier regulation. Also, there was no direct method of execution was being available, which is now been available in the new regulation. And the course of action was approaching the police and then to the courts. Also, there was not a complete provision with respect to the partial payment available in the old law. There was a provision available, but now this has been a mandate on the bank's part to give the partial amount in case the insufficient funds are available in the account. Now, when we talk about the complete process in the earlier regulation, Firstly, if there was a bank, the check which was being presented to the bank and the check gets bounced, then the holder of the check was applying to the police to file an application. The police was verifying all the documents pertaining to the case. Also, the police was registering a complaint in order to get the beneficiary of the check. And now, if this was not contactable, then there was a legal recourse of the police being done, and then finally a case was being filed in order to recover the money. Now, in this new law, as I have already explained, it has been made very efficient and a better way, wherein the bank is receiving a check, and in case of the non-sufficient fund, the check gets encashed up to the amount which is available in the account. Now, if there is a partial amount available in the account, then the bank is giving the check back to the payee and with the documents of the certificate, so that the payee can apply directly to the court for execution of the check. Now moving forward, definitely the insufficient funds is no more now coming under the criminal offense, but there are acts which will be considered as criminal acts in case any of these happens, and definitely it will be punishable under the law. So now if the payer orders the bank not to cash the check before the due date, if there is any such order, definitely it is being done with a malified intention, and this will be considered as a fraudulent act. So under this, criminal punishment can be ordered. If the payer closes the account or withdraws the available balance prior to the due date, again, this will be considered as a criminal offense. If the payer deliberately signed the check inaccurately, so signing of the check deliberately inaccurately, definitely there is a malified intention behind that. And if the payer intentionally writes or signs the check in such a way that prevents its cashing. So these are some of the instances which are being given in the current regulation, which could be considered as a criminal offense. And against this, definitely we can approach the criminal courts as well as the police for the further actions. Now discussing what are the fines and imprisonment and sections being given under the current regulations. So fines are being determined on the basis of the fraudulent act. As the bounce check has been decriminalized, but in case of fraudulent acts that we have just summarized in the previous slide, there will be a criminal action being taken. Now, as per the decree, certain acts shall also be criminally punishable by imprisonment for not less than a year. So minimum imprisonment is for 1 year, which is being given in the regulation. And there will be conviction of the individuals in terms of the sanction placed, such as withdrawal of existing checkbook from the conviction party. So there's a provision that there will be withdrawal of the checkbooks, or there will be freezing of the license of the corporate entity for up to 3 years has been given. So let's look what are the penalties and fines given under the law. So whoever commits any of these acts shall be punishable by the fine of not less than 10% of the value of the check, or a minimum penalty amount of 5,000 has been given. In case if declaring deliberately the consideration for the payment of the check is unavailable or less than of the value of the check is available. Refusing in any bad faith to pay a check drawn on the bank and having consideration for payment to a bearer against whom no valid opposition was made, or refraining from inscribing the statement referred in Article 632, or refraining from paying a check partially, or issuing the certificate to this effect, or delivering the original check. So these are the liabilities being put on the bank, that if they refuses, there could be an action which can be taken against them. Moving further, this article deals about the confiscation of the seized objects. So confiscation of the seized object which is acquired as a result of the crime or used in committing it without prejudice to the right of the bona fide party. So, and also confiscation shall be ordered if manufacturing, acquisition, possession, sale or offer for sale of the seized object constitutes as a crime, and if these objects do not belong to the accused. Also, where there is no possibility of confiscation, then the court may order for imposition of a fine which is equivalent to its value. Moving further, now this talks about the prohibition of the professional activity with respect to a corporate entity. So in this case, there can be suspension of the professional activity for a period not exceeding 3 years if the crime was committed on account of its activity. Also, it can be punishable by imprisonment for a period not less than a year or a fine ranging between 50,000 to 100,000 or either of this. Now moving further, this deals with the management of the company who is in charge while the crime has been committed. So the person in charge of the actual management shall only be punishable if he is proven to be aware of the offense or he himself is involved in the offense, or where there is no responsibility on the part of the natural person is proven as specified in the preceding paragraph, then the legal person shall be punished by a fine of not less than that which is prescribed in the law. A judgment may be issued to suspend the legal person's license to practice for a period not exceeding 6 months. So now in this case, there is a judgment which there is a suspension which is not more than 6 months. However, in the previous slide, there was up to 3 years, the suspension of the license. Also, all these cases, there's a mandate to publish in 2 local newspapers, which is in Arabic as well as in English. Further, this article deals with the criminal lawsuit that shall be terminated in the offense as set out in Article 641, completely from 1 to 2 of this decree law, if the full or outstanding amount of the check is paid prior to the commencement of the execution proceedings. So now if there is any settlement being done between the parties before commencement of any execution proceedings, then there can be cancellation or termination of the lawsuit. Now how MBG can assist in all these matters. So it is always advisable to start with a proper legal advice and what is a legal recourse available in any of the cases. Also, as in the previous article, we have seen that if there is any mediation or settlement happens between the party, then there is no requirement to go for any legal recourse or any lawsuit, and the matter can be closed. Also, the bank plays a very important role, and the bank is the one who is issuing the correct documentation in all the aspects. It is important to obtain proper documents from the courts and then ultimately file a complaint to the authorities for the executive decree. So these are the recourse which are being available, and I hope this session was informative to all of you, and looking forward to receive the questions and answer to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sakina. That was really informative. We'll just take 2 questions. What will happen to absconding bounce check cases where the criminal and civil case is already in place? That's the first question.
Yes, so see, definitely when there is already a case in place, that would be dealt with the old regulation. Now this, when there are any new matters which will happen, this law will be applicable to those matters actually. So definitely those proceedings will happen and the judgments will be given as per the old regulation.
Okay.
And also, one of the important thing with respect to this law is that though this law has been published and it is very extensive in nature, but implementation regulations are still yet to be, issued with that exactly how this will be implemented in the country. So we are still waiting for the implementing regulation of of this decree law.
Okay, so the second question. Is there any time frame for the recovery of the money? I mean, is there any deadline, like it will be happening for 6 months, 4 months, something like that?
No, definitely. So, for example, if there is any such check bounce case, then immediately you need to go and collect the check with the documents that has been given in the regulation, and then you need to apply for the executive order. The more time you will take, because the check also has some time, right? So it is advisable to go immediately and file the case.
Okay. Okay, we'll just go to the last question. In what cases can a holder reject a bank's payment of the check's partial value?
I would say there are no such cases, which, of course, there is no certain situation being mentioned in the regulation. However, if there is any case wherein, the holder is not accepting, then he cannot, ask for the documents or from the bank and go for the execution order. Definitely, this is one of the important part that has been given in the regulation. So there is no particular situation being mentioned in the law wherein holder can reject it. It's up to the holder definitely of the checks to take it or not to take it. But if he does not take it, then he cannot go for the legal recourse which is given in the law.
Okay, thank you very much, Sakina. I think there is a few more questions, but we'll just take one more. What is the responsibility of the CFO and the general manager in case a check is bounced? I think you have already answered that, but just can you be more elaborate?
I think I had covered in one of the slides this thing. So if they have intentionally done that, definitely they will become the part of this offense, or the execution will be filed against them. So the good thing is that definitely there will not be any criminal offense that will constitute in case of the insufficient fund. But if these people have fraudulently issued the check with an intention that the check gets bound, because in one of the cases which has been there, that if there is a wrong signature or any other cases, then they will be liable. In the other cases, definitely they'll be liable to make payment of the check as per the executive decision which will be issued by the court. So now there'll be no criminal offense, but if there is any execution order being issued by the court, they will be liable to make payment of that amount.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Sakina. We would like to present you with a certificate of appreciation signed by our chairman and vice chairman. Thank you very much. And
thank you so much.
Yeah, now I would like to invite CA John George, our vice chairman, for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, CA Anu. It's my pleasure to propose vote of thanks. The topic global market outlook and the new UAE laws. Today we had a wonderful session, great learnings from all the three speakers. As you know that the market was volatile for the last few weeks in fact, and recently the market was coming down based on various news like the Fed is going to stop the asset purchase and the interest rate is going to increase from March. So there was a huge volatility and there is a drop in the share value companies, where you get, as Mr. Yogesh said, you shift from a highly, shift to good companies which can give value and give dividend yields. So those companies going to perform for a long term. The short money, which is easy money, is going to go away. So, and my view on the interest is basically is interest rate may increase in interest rate may bring some volatility and some short-term corrections. But why the banks are increasing the rate? Because the economy is good. Economy is good means company is going to do good for some near future. So the interest rate might increase gradually, and the growth also will be there for some time until a peak will come. So I think investing in a good company is always good. So interest rate is increase is good for a short term. I mean, for a medium term, for that for the companies will perform. So thank you, Yogesh, for your wonderful presentation. And I request all our members who would like to invest in US market, please contact Century Financials. These are our sponsors. Please support our sponsors. And they have a very valuable team to give valuable advice. So let's not look at the cost of someone who give a cheap rates for a brokerage, and you end up losing on the other side. So Yogesh was recommending few stocks. So they have some studies, and which will help you to decide on the stock rather than you spend your time wasting time on studying on the which stock to invest. So there are experts there. Let's go to them. Join with Century Financials, and it will be help for them, for the chapter, and for the members, for its benefit for everyone. And also, I'd like to thank Mr. Madan Mohan for the insight on the new data protection law. It was very insightful presentation, and this will help us, all the members, to in the professional life to how to go forward. And also thank Shakina, associate partner from MBG Group Corporate Services, for the talk on the check bouncing regulations. So it was really interesting, and because we all deal with checks on a day-to-day basis, and we should know that how this checks is going to affect us when we sign a check. Is it okay to sign the check and there is no fund? At least you don't have a criminal case now. At least you should take out the civil case. But doesn't mean that you should sign a check without fund. If it is by purpose, then the old law still applies. So please take care of your own thing when you sign a check. Don't be under pressure to sign a check just to issue the check also. Thank you, all the three speakers. And one very important thing is about the membership. I request all members to please pay your membership fees. And with your support, the chapter runs. And when you pay the membership fees, there is one more checkbox you can find, is the college time subscription. You will find this rate nowhere else other than in ICI. If you go directly to college times, your rate is much more. So it's better you subscribe for this newspaper, and maybe few of us may think that, okay, I am getting online my news and all. Yes, you are getting, but when you read a newspaper, it gives a, you'll read many newses, right? And your children see this also. They also get the habit of reading a newspaper. Okay, I get from my parents that, okay, they read a newspaper in the morning. When I grew also, I need to read a newspaper. So please subscribe for the College Times as well. And thank you in advance for subscribing that. Now we have, I'd like to thank our committee members, especially PDC team. They work, they have done a fantastic job during the annual seminar, especially the PDC. And their committee was, fully dedicated how they performed during the annual seminar. I think you've seen such a dedicated committee members here, and we are lucky to have these amazing guys in our team. And we thank our sponsors and all the members who participate today and listening to these speeches and supporting us, the chapter, in all ways. And before I close, there is a prizes for two members, but our chapter chairman want to make it to 3 because there are so many questions was coming. So we will give 3 this time. So there is not in an order, but I will mention the 3 names. One is the CA Yash Bajaj. Congratulations, CA Yash. And please also participate in the future meetings and just encourage the speakers and us, everyone. And the second is Alok Sarogi is a senior chartered accountant. Congratulations to Alok, C. Alok. And the other one is CA Ashok Aditya. Congratulations, C. Ashok. And today we had a great learning, different topics. Chapter is always it will be in the forefront to bring such latest topics for the members for our education and sharing knowledge. Thank you. A great evening and good night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.